Uh, Good afternoon, folks. On a Friday afternoon, gives me a great privilege in moderating this session with Honorable Member of Parliament and very distinguished entrepreneur and public-spirited individual, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. And in today's session, I think like we have a wide participation from a variety of organizations and various individuals. So what we're going to discuss over the next 1 hour, we'll pick up a perspective and insights from Rajiv on the recently announced reform cum stimulus package by the finance minister following the announcement that the prime minister made. So the some of the key focus areas in terms of the reform and the stimulus package, uh, and among the most critical one, which maybe we could start inviting Rajiv to give his thoughts, is on the package for the MSMEs, the micro, small, medium enterprises. Rajiv ji, I think, has also been advocating a lot of policy measures towards supporting the MSME ecosystem. And in light of the suggestions that he has made and in terms of what has been announced in the stimulus package, let us probably hear out from him in terms of the whether the MSME package has been designed well in terms of reaching out to the intended audience, especially the 3 lakh crore MSME package that kind of gives a 100% credit guarantee to whole lot of organizations. So Rajiv, what's your perspective on the overall design of the MSME package?
So Prasanna, thank you, and thank you all for joining me on a Friday afternoon. The first Friday after the lockdown was eased. So I'm hoping this is a slightly better Friday than the last 4 or 5 Fridays that we've had to spend stuck at home. But most importantly, this is the first Friday after the government has rolled out its revival package.
Right.
And it's called the 20 lakh crore package. Some people call it the Atma Nirbhar package, whatever the case may be. I have had a number of such Zoom and video conferencing engagements with entrepreneurs and businesses and exchange emails over the last 60 days. But all of that was in the absence of this government response. And now we know what the government has done. So I will try and explain to you as the government sees it, as you, in my opinion, ought to see the economy, the package, and what is life going to be like going forward for business. So I'll give you my perspective, and then, of course, we will have this conversation as we always have. As I have said in public, and I have said in other forums as well, this shock is a serious shock. The coronavirus shock on our economy is a shock not restricted to our economy. It's restricted to, it is a shock that has hit pretty much all economies in the world, including the biggest and the most major economies of the US. And to give you an idea, the US, despite having announced a $3 trillion stimulus package, $3 trillion of stimulus package, which is, I don't even want to convert it into rupees. It's many, many rupees with many, many zeros behind it. Even then, the US has now hit a 25% unemployment rate, a significantly high rate of business closures, significantly high rate of a significant decline in economic slowdown. So you are seeing that it is not just about the money that you throw at the problem. It is the deep and structural nature of the problem itself. And if you move to India, and I want all of you to just understand this. I'm sorry if I sound a little teacherish and preachy about this, but I would definitely like for you to understand this. The hit to India is being very serious and deep because it impacts the 4 legs on which our economy was running for the last 5-6 years. One was consumption, the other was manufacturing, the third was exports, and the fourth thing that has been impacted that is significant for our economy is capital flows. in terms of consumption, there is clearly, as all of you know, as entrepreneurs, there has been a demand shock. And the demand shock is a combination of both the lockdown and consumer distancing and social distancing and the general fall in confidence in people. People want to preserve their cash. The supply chain disruptions are very significant because a lot of industry in India depend on China, whether it's the pharma industry, whether it's the electronics industry, many other industries depend on the Chinese supply chain and the domestic leg of that Chinese supply chain to complete their manufacturing business. And that has been hit. And the third, like I said, that in almost every market in the world, there is a pause on export, on consumer buying, and therefore our exports have been hit. And the fourth is, we have been an economy, despite the lack of domestic private capital going into investment, we've had significant foreign capital flows, which have also gone on a pause. So all four have been hit, and therefore our economy has been particularly hit. And when people compare 2020 to 2008, I want to explain to people 2008 was a walk in the park. 2008 was a simple liquidity issue that was hitting the financial sector. This is a much broader, much deeper shock to the economy. So if you look at that, and then if you look at what the government has done over the last, let's say, 60 days, it has addressed 4 or 5 very structural things. But most importantly, the government's response, and this is something we must understand as being very different from the US or Germany or Japan, is that the government is not announcing one big bang stimulus package or one big set of policy actions and saying that's the end of it. This government has from day one decided that it will look at this problem as a continuing challenge. And the solution set will be a continuing solution set. So we had in the early days, the soft landing of the economy, the moratorium on loans, the package for the poor and the vulnerable. And then we have this 20 lakh crore package, which consists of loans, loan guarantees, grants, subordinate debt, equity, all of that for industry. And today the RBI announced a package which consists of lowering of the interest rates even further, and most importantly, extending the moratorium on the loans for another 2.5, 3 months. So in a nutshell, I want to sort of end my introduction by saying, just because we have got out of the lockdown does not mean the economic shock is over.
Absolutely.
This is point number 1 that I want everybody to understand. The virus is still there. The healthcare emergency continues. The basic disruptions to consumption and demand, the disruptions to exports, the disruptions to capital flows remain. And therefore, we must be as individual industry, businessmen, entrepreneurs, whatever way you're involved, understand this is going to be a long drawn out process, Prasanna, and that the solution is going to be not a V-shaped recovery, it is going to be a U-shaped recovery.
Absolutely.
So we are operating in a very different world. The uncertainty is a new normal. We don't know in September if there's going to be a new peak and there's going to be another lockdown. We don't know if the economy will grow or it will grow and then again fall. So there are a number of things that are complete unknowns today as we look forward to the next 6 to 8 months.
Absolutely.
And it is in that context, please study this package, and we'll discuss this package. And please, and I've written recently that this is not a package where the government has completely used its entire ammunition. So there is a lot in reserve, and that reserve is deliberate because as the things move, as the uncertainty unveils itself, that the government should be able to delve into its fiscal ammunition, if you want to call it that, and unveil more packages as and when it is required. I will stop there. I know many of you have a lot of questions. I have been swamped with questions in the last 4 or 5 days, and I've tried to answer many. But I'm quite happy to have a conversation, Prasanna, with you and with Rajiv.
Yeah, sure. Rajiv, before I just probably ask one question and invite others to, chip in with their question. We have a whole lot of individuals and organizations who are participating in this event. So appreciation for all of them, actually. So we have members from the CII, Young Indian group from Bangalore, from Mysore, the Hubli chapter. Then we have the Kerala Samajam, we have the Kasya, and we have the Kerala Chamber of Commerce. So a whole lot of fairly good representation from the entrepreneurship world and from different groups actually. So I think looking forward to some interesting questions actually as we move forward. So Rajiv, maybe I'll use the privilege as a moderator and ask you the first question before we can invite it. So what's your, of course, you made it so clear that, I mean, it's a combination of some front-loaded stimulus and a whole lot of reform, and government has kept a lot of policy responses and it could shape it based on how the pandemic unfolds. So that's a great point that you made. So one of the significant supply side reforms, or one of the key things as the part of this tranche of announcement, was the MSME package actually. So the argument is that, when there is this is both the demand and the supply side shock in a certain sense. And of course, the MSME access to credit has been a challenge. Why do you think the finance ministers or the government place such a lot of emphasis on MSME, almost to the extent that, the significant amount of the package was for the MSME focus actually? So what's the thinking you think?
No, the thinking is very simple, Prasanna. Thinking is that there are two segments that are going to be the worst hit by the shock.
Okay.
One is on an individual level, it is the poor, the vulnerable, and the informal sector. And the government has done significant amounts of work there on with the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana. On the other hand, in the business side, it is clearly the micro, the small, and the medium enterprises that are going to be, in a lot of ways, facing the brunt of the shock, because both on the consumption demand side and on the supply chain disruptions, these are the small companies that make up for the bulk of our economy, bulk of our jobs and employment, and they are the most vulnerable to any such volatility in the economy as we have seen today. So that is the thinking, that if you see the big boys and the big businesses have not been given any great packages. The reason is not that the government doesn't want to give it. It is the government's immediate priority is to basically protect the real economy, protect the most vulnerable in the real economy, and ensure that in the soft landing process, these enterprises, these jobs remain intact to the extent possible. Of course, it is not possible that all 100% jobs and 100% businesses will be intact because, for example, tourism, for example, airlines, these are all businesses that are not going to be easily protected. But this is the thinking of why the focus has been on MSME. This is why people like me have been loudly arguing about MSME. There is another reason, Prasanna, to answer your question. The MSMEs, after this Raghuram Rajan's asset quality review in 2015 and the IBC, the RBI, in the wake of Raghuram Rajan's belated wakening up to the NPA problem, created a situation where the MSMEs were being dragged into the insolvency process without giving them a great opportunity to restructure, because it was just almost impossible to resolve the loans, and therefore by default they were going to insolvency. This crisis, in my opinion, has opened up a lifeline for MSMEs, even those who are in the NPAs, by creating this 50,000 crore fund of funds, creating this 20,000 crore subordinate debt product, which will create the equity side support to MSMEs, while allowing these 6 lakh crores of loans and loan guarantees.
Loan guarantees, okay. Thank you so much, Rajiv. We have Jacob Castro with a question on the MSME. So I invite him to probably, join the Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Prasanna. Thank you very much.
You can expand on, the MSME part, whatever you wanted to ask. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, for having called this meeting and express our opinions about what has been announced. Just now in the morning, there was a FICCI National Executive Committee meeting, and Nirmala Sitharaman addressed on this issue. But unfortunately, abruptly, there was a power cut, the line cut, and she has to leave the office and go. This is the situation in Delhi. Government also suffers with the COVID-19. Okay. My point of argument here is When I saw and done an analysis on the Prime Minister's speech, Rajiv, it was an awesome speech. No doubt about it. The five pillars, what he has quoted, and especially the five: land, labor, liquidity, and law. It is an awesome description. But the five trenches of the package, what Nirmala Sitharaman announced, it is not covering that. Bits and pieces here and there. Take, for example, MSME alone. You know that 11 crores of MSMEs. So there are 30 to 40% MSMEs who have not taken the loan from the bank. They have invested their own. What is their fate today? Point number one. Point number two. The 3 lakhs crores, which is only a bank guarantee. I'm sorry, government is guaranteeing that floor. But loan is given by whom? Manager. Even if there was a money, liquidity was very high with the bank, just because there was no current ratio, just because there was no debt equity ratio, and the DPU is not there, because the 2 months working has not taken place, which manager will give a loan?
Okay.
And point number here is, even if it's given a loan, when the government guarantee invocation comes, when? Because I already given a collateral. They first exhaust my collateral already given. What is the point of giving 3 lakhs crores now? What we requested was, we want liquid cash, liquidity today, to pay the salaries to the workers, to pay rentals, interest, EMI, whatever it is coming, or to the day-to-day affairs which have been doing.
So,
What is
Jacob,
required?
sir, just to, sorry for interrupting.
Let me complete one
Yeah,
sentence.
sure. Just
20 to
you can make
30% of the sanctioned working capital, if it is given on board for every MSME, they will get the liquid cash today and they can survive. And there is a problem of, say, all the workers gone to the native place. The 33% working is the question of 33% doesn't arise, because there are only 10 to 20%. Production is not there. Supply chain is not there. Money is not there. So how will survive? So this is the major problem where Nirmala Sitharaman is not understood.
Okay. Sir, just to summarize quickly, he's talking about the operational challenges. Though the scheme has still not been notified, so it would be great to hear your response. Over to you, Rajiv. Yeah.
No. So look, no. So I've heard many. So Jacob, I've heard many stories like this, and I think we have to understand. Forget about the reform announcements for a minute. That is a post restarting the economy phase of expansion. So what the Prime Minister is talking about, land, labor, liquidity and law, is about how do we expand the economy? But before that, you have to soft land the economy and reboot the economy. So I think you are talking about the phase of rebooting the economy, Jacob. Now there are, if you are an MSME today, let us assume that you are an MSME with no debt. You have no term borrowing. And I'm assuming there is a percentage of MSMEs like that. I don't know how many are there. They can go today and automatically seek a 25% increase in working capital with the same amount of collateral, no questions asked, to the bank. If the bank that you are going to and who has already given you working capital limits is not doing that, then that is an issue you can easily escalate to me or to whoever you want to escalate to, because that is what the bank is supposed to do. Number one. Number two, to create additional liquidity, Jacob, if an MSME today wants to restart, there is this loan guarantee where he can avail some loan in addition to the working capital. Let us say he wants to pay off some other elements of his creditors which are not covered by working capital, and he needs a little bit more than 25%. He can take this untied loan, which is no collateral. The bank is supposed to lend you a loan because it is guaranteed by the government of India. So these two options are available to you. Now, if the bank manager says, no, I am not giving it because for whatever reason, that is something you can easily escalate to me or to your any other MP that you, if you have a relationship, because that is the core of the package that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced. The banks are supposed to lend 25% additional working capital. The banks are supposed to give you a term loan without collateral, backed by government guarantees, provided you are an ongoing MSME.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, my suggestion is please go down that road. If you find that there is a problem, please escalate it to me. I am very happy to take your particular example or any other example where the banks are not disbursing money to MSMEs under this announced program. I will take it up personally with the finance minister.
So I have a suggestion, Rajiv, here for especially MSME.
Yes.
Whatever their problem, create like Arogya Setu and app is created. Then app can be created for MSME to express their grievances. They can just put it on the app. So please create an app on MSME website or MSME app. MSME grievances app.
Why do you want to do all that? Why do you want to create an app and then
Otherwise,
I'll tell you why.
Trust me, no manager will give money.
No.
I have plenty of complaints.
No, listen to me. Listen to me. It is correct. It is true that public sector banks would rather not lend. And that is not something that is new. That is something that is about 2-3 years old. However, we are now in a new situation where the government of India knows that the only way to preserve our economy, preserve our economic progress is for our banks that are sitting with 7.5 lakh crores of liquidity for them to lend to MSMEs. This is an announcement made by the government of India. If the banks are not doing it, my point is, let us not waste time with apps. You raise it, escalate it to me or to whoever you want to escalate it to. Right. And I promise you that the banks will be asked to held to account because that is what the government of India has announced.
So Rajiv,
yes.
Next question from
Kaushik here. Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Kaushik. You can go ahead and ask the question.
Hello, sir. I think last time also we met on the same issue.
Yes.
When it comes to this MSME 3 lakh or additional 6 lakh crore, there is a criteria which is being asked, that is that MSME, particular MSME should have paid or not paid dues not more than 60 days. See, in the last year, there was automotive industry was worst hit, and a lot of MSMEs were dependent on automotive sector, and the machine tool sector, which was directly related dependent on this MSMEs, was badly hit, and the one-time restructuring was also offered to them. So definitely one-time restructuring would have been offered people who could not pay loan or they pay their principal for more than 90 days. But when this criteria comes, I fear somewhere most of the MSMEs will not have that criteria itself to approach the bank. See, approaching the bank, and if the bank manager denies coming,
I understand your question. So let me answer.
Yeah.
You are basically now talking about an MSME that was in default on, let us say, March 1. Let's use an example of March 1st.
Yeah.
They were technically in default on 1st of March.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, for that, currently there are two scenarios. One is that the government of India has now said, look, you have a fund of funds. You go approach the fund of funds, draw down some equity and subordinate debt from there to correct your default status. Okay. And then go and borrow. Are you understanding my point, Kaushik?
Yeah.
So there is a fund of funds that is being notified now. Let us say you were 50 lakhs in default. I'm giving you an example, okay? 25 lakhs in default. There's an interest payment that a company was in default. If you were in default for X lakhs, you go to the fund of this SIDB fund of funds and say, give me that equity. Give me either, if you don't want equity and you don't want to dilute your ownership, you go and get subordinate debt. Use that money as a credit to pay off your creditor and draw down your additional 25% working capital and a new loan.
Okay.
Are you understanding my point?
So So my question is,
Number one. Number two, some of us are still arguing with the RBI, and the RBI has not agreed to it yet. It will help if industry associations ask for this, that the MSMEs are allowed retrospectively to restructure their loans from, let us say, December 31st of 2019. That means they at some point in the past, wherever where they were current in their dues. From there on, they are seen as being due, and then you restructure their loans.
Okay.
So there are two approaches to this that the government is. One, the government has already announced, which is without changing the prudential norms, without changing the NPA norms, the MSME, which may have been in default, now can come back into borrowing by drawing down a line for equity and subordinate debt.
Okay.
This, in my opinion, please explore it. Please go to talk to SIDBI and explore it. If you are facing, and I will, Kaushik, I'm happy to work with you on this and use you as an example.
Okay.
If you have difficulty in this, tell me, and then we will sit down with SIDBI and figure out what the solution is. And then I'm ready to. But the principle that the government of India has now brought to bear and has announced is that even a defaulting MSME will be brought back into the real economy.
Correct. So that I understood your point. Definitely I'll work with and get back to you on the feedback. But what if they some MSMEs have been got the OTR, like one-time restructuring offers already, and think by February or March they would have got the sanction for the OTR. But if we go to the bank says actually you were a standard account just because after doing a OTR, now you don't come under the standard account. So in that case, will they really have that again? Whatever the working capital they have, will they get 25% or 15% on the working capital even now after the restructuring?
Are you standard now? Are you standard now? You got
very much. Yes.
If you've got the OTR and you've got the restructuring done already,
yeah,
and you are standard now,
yeah,
of course you'll get it.
So what yesterday we had a interaction with the bank. They said, sir, recently we did a OTR and
no.
Actually, you're not standard. That's what they say. But we have got a letter from the bank saying that you're a standard account.
If you are if your one-time restructuring is complete,
yeah,
you are standard.
Yeah, we are complete.
And if you are standard and you are an MSME, you are allowed to borrow again.
Okay.
It is very clear. If anybody tells you anything otherwise, it is wrong.
Okay.
Okay, definitely get back to you with this.
No. There is a scenario when you have been offered and you have negotiated an OTR, but you have not completed the OTR because you're not able to raise the funds for the OTR now. It is for that you have the subordinate debt and the fund of funds.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'll get back to you on the. Yeah, I'll get back to you with the details if any problem is.
We'll take the next question.
Thank
you. Dr. Somdat Singh wants to ask something on exports. And we also have, hi.
Hello, Prasanna.
Thank
you, Rajiv ji. Namaste again. I was a part of your previous discussion. It was absolutely amazing. While the stimulus is there, while, like you said, there are some banks who are already complying with it and extending the working capital, but there are challenges that the MSME faces based on the 4 pillars that you talked about. One is the consumption, the manufacturing, the export, and finally the capital inflow. So because the consumption has gone down significantly within the Indian economy, a lot of MSMEs have pivoted into using their existing manufacturing for COVID items. Now, what happens within India is that there is no proper methods of certification, due to which a lot of secondary products are available. And this is India's opportunity to shine outside and beat China and Vietnam and Malaysia when it comes to export. My challenge is, and I'm going to specifically talk from that perspective, given that I'm in the business of COVID supplies, is export. We have great products that are being manufactured out of India, where manufacturing units have pivoted to COVID supplies, but we can't export them. And the capital crunch that the economy is facing, and including job crunches, can be easily mitigated if we had the DGFT approvals at the right time. So how can we seek your support when we have great quality products, whether it's masks, whether it's PPs, OPDs, to get these export clearances so we can bring back capital to this economy and make the MSMEs more fluid?
Do you need approvals from DGFT or do you need approvals from...
I think there might have been
you do need approval, yes. You do need the...
on export because
you have to go, the application has to go to the DGFT, which we've already... So we are maybe a little luckier that we have submitted, we are in the process, but I'm talking at large for a lot of co-entrepreneurs who are in the similar segment. How can we seek your help, sir? How can we mitigate?
So I think there are 2 issues here. And I think, Prasanna, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
One is that there is a prohibition on export of all healthcare pandemic-related items.
Yes.
That, in my opinion, is not going to go away anytime soon, because the focus today as a nation is to build up our own healthcare capacities and capabilities.
Correct.
We are nowhere fully done with that yet. And as you know, and you know, you read the papers and you watch TV, the lockdown or the easing of the lockdown is causing spikes.
True.
It is not in any way moderating the graph is not flattening. So I think that is a separate issue, Dr. Sundar Singh. I think the point you should is, if you have products, why don't you look at deploying it in the domestic market, looking at selling it to governments, and then when the export market opens up, it will open up.
Right.
And but to try and now force the situation of opening the export market, that is not going to happen. We have to be, that will happen organically. When it has to open, it will open. But if you have great products, this is a good time to talk to state governments, and all state governments are
absolutely
ramping up their procurement and capacity on these issues.
Where we need the support, Rajiv ji, is that while the MSME has now made it mandatory that any tender under 200 crore, the preference will go to an MSME, governments are still looking at international organizations to support them. They're prioritizing till 3M 8210 over equivalent.
I think that that was notified yesterday. So hopefully maybe we should give it like a couple of months time, because I think that notification itself came yesterday. So maybe,
yesterday.
So I'll write to you, Rajiv ji.
Sure, that will be great.
Yes, of course.
So we'll take the next question. Kirtika Sivaswamy wants to ask on the MSME if she's around. Otherwise, we have.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Hey, hi. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, sir. So this is actually in continuation with Jacob G's question. With respect to MSME loan, again, it eventually lands on to the bank manager. Now, this is a general observation. They are not very forthcoming, and in fact, if I can make this comment, some of them are, they are not in sync with what the government actually says. So now I have a feeling that they have to come out more. They have to be more appreciative of these MSME units and do it on a quick basis. Right now, in a situation where we are already being under tremendous pressure, all the MSMEs, and are literally struggling to pay their salaries and general overheads. Now, if we have to go to the bank, we have to start explaining what we are basically doing, and they start from basics and scratch. So the banks are not going to come out and give you this just because Nirmala ji has announced. They're not going to come out and immediately help you. So I have a feeling that there should be a mechanism where this can be dispersed at the local branch manager level on how about going, how they actually go about giving this credit-free loan.
Sure.
So Kritika,
eventually the very basic.
No. So Kritika, the reason I'm having these deep engagements and I'm meeting and talking to people is not because I have nothing to do. I can assure you I have many other things to do. Is basically to understand whether the announcements of the government of India are actually working at the grassroots. That is, frankly, that is why I'm speaking with you all. So therefore, my suggestion is, let us not waste time and energy in proposing some scheme and mechanism and all that. Like I respectfully pointed out to Jacob also, you send me your example. You send me by email your loan application, the bank. And if the bank is not responded to that, I will use that as an example to demonstrate that the bank is inconsistent with not aligned to the government of India's policies.
Correct.
There is no point if the government of India, the prime minister, the leader of the nation, and the finance minister announce something, and a bank manager has the power to put the brakes on it. That is not how the government is supposed to work. So my suggestion is, I will use your example. You give me your example. What problems you are facing? 1 or 2 examples from all of you I'll take. I'll make that a case study on which banks are actually operating properly and responding and which banks are not. And that way I can fix the problem instead of going out and then creating some other meta structure which will have 4 other people to deal with and so on and so forth. I believe in solving the problem. So we will work together to solve the problem. Yeah.
Next question. Let me invite Kaushik Murali from the Confederation of Indian Industries, CIA. Kaushik, are you around?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Kaushik. You can ask.
Wonderful initiative. We only wonder why this clarity in communication was not forthcoming with the announcements. I leave it so ambiguous upfront and allow us to unravel it like layers of an onion every day. I think half the problem would have been solved if there was a lot more clarity. My specific question to you, sir, is that with the lockdown now kind of opening up and industries looking to start, we are faced with this unique challenge of a lot of the labor force actually going back to their homes. So is there anything that the government is looking to directly incentivize them to come back? Because we still are not clear when the trains will come back. We keep seeing news articles every day about quarantine rules changing. So is there something that can be done to invite these people back into Karnataka?
Kaushik, again, I will tell you very honestly, and I am not government, but let us assume that I am an advocate of the government and I have some insights into the government and inroads into the government. But I can assure you today, whether you are President Donald Trump or any other leader in India or abroad, nobody can predict what is going to happen. Forget 6 months down the road. They can't predict what will happen 3 months down the road. So all of these variables that constitute our real economy, migrant workers, capital flow, supplies, export demand, consumption, all of these are variables in a very complex analytical model that nobody can predict. So what we can do is today, we know we are easing the lockdown. We will restart. We will restart with social distancing. We will restart with particular care. What the impact of the restart will be on the migrant labor, migrant workers. Currently, no state government, I can assure you, is going to be thrilled to have people crisscrossing their borders unless they have a handle on the healthcare situation. And nobody has a handle on the healthcare situation. And that can only happen when there is a vaccine, when there is some a situation in the future. So my advice to every one of my constituent stakeholders who ask me for advice is, look, don't ask questions for which there are no answers. This is a new world. Uncertainty is a new normal. We have to take the pieces that are in our control. If there is labor within the vicinity of your unit, use that labor. If you don't have labor, train that labor and deploy them. Does that mean there will be a delayed recovery of your business? Probably. But a delayed recovery of your business is better than no recovery of your business or shutting down your business. So we are today operating, Kaushik, sorry for being less than spectacularly clear, but that is the world in which we live. I don't believe today, for example, that the state government of Maharashtra will be in a tearing hurry to welcome back migrants unless they are able to certify each one of those migrants as COVID-free. And that process itself of testing, 3 crore migrant workers, which is the estimate, or whether it is 1 crore migrant workers, is going to be a huge logistical task. So either we reconcile to a reduced operation, which is one model of looking at it, saying we'll operate at 30% capacity, 40% capacity, and gradually build it up. Or like I said, you go for 100%, but you do it with local labor, local staff. Yeah. On the issue of clarity, Kaushik, I want all of us to agree on one point. Nobody has clarity. I think today it is one of those scenarios, and I've been an entrepreneur for many, many years, probably even before all of you even started entrepreneurship. And I have seen business cycles ups and downs, but I've never seen this kind of inability to forecast. Even the most sophisticated economists today are looking at their spreadsheets and going, but variable number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I don't know what to plug in into the model. So that is the reality we live in, and all we can do is work. And the government has done, in my opinion, the most sensible thing, which is to say the solution will be a continuing solution. The government package will be a continuing package. It won't be discrete digital packages. It will be something which is of a hand-holding nature. As a consequence, if our GDP this year is -5% or -2%, so be it. But the idea is to slowly come out of that. If we are lucky, it will be sharp. If we are not lucky, it will be more gradual. But gradual or sharp, we must come out of it safely without creating, problems down the road. So I don't know, Kaushik, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's the answer I have.
Next, Rajiv, a lot of interested folks in. So I'll try to get in one more couple of the questions. So we have Mr. Raju from the Karnataka Small Scale Association.
Yes.
Mr. Raju, if you're there.
We spoke already, yes. We spoke last time.
Sir, good afternoon.
Namaste.
Mr. Namaste. Rajivji, first of all, I thank, this is the second time you are organizing the things. So we are so kind of you because you have more inclined towards MSME in particular. So whatever now our Rashtra also specified, whatever scheme announced, package, that is for futuristic package is what they given. Immediate relief, we MSME in particular, we are looking for immediate relief. Immediate relief means, see, since from 2-3 months lockdown is there. From lockdown we came out of lockdown. Now we have in front of us we have labor problem, finance problem, orders problem, everything in front of us. For this, they would have given some at least 3 months interest waiver, something like that. So then our MSME could easily work, and also same time for working capital, how they are giving OD and CC for the working capital. So we have to show our stock. We have to show our this one whatever sales is there, earlier sales we have to show. Then only they can enhance our and OD account. So in that scenario, for nearly 3 months lockdown is there for all of our industry, and also before that we faced lot of auto sector slowdown. Then since from 1 year we are facing one by one problems, demonetization, then auto sector, everything that you know very well. So in this scenario, they would have given some relief package to MSME in particular. Then they would have come out of all these things. That is my main concern, Mr. Rajivji.
Raju, first of all, I just want to just point out, Prasanna, just for your general information, the last engagement I had with MSMEs resulted in a note that I had prepared for the government. And that note was largely, I'm not saying largely, I shouldn't say largely, was very instrumental in sensitizing to a government to the importance of prioritizing MSMEs. So I just want to leave it there, that it is your inputs that caused the government to do as much as it did. Number one. Number two, Mr. Raju, I think you have forget the futuristic thing for the time being. The government today, and I want to clarify because Jacob has raised that, and I think somebody else raised that, Kritika raised that. Your entitlement for an additional working capital has nothing to do with your stock. The 25% limit is an automatic enhancement of your working capital limit. That is the announcement by the government. If the bank manager says, no, show me stock, show me receivables, and that is the basis on which I'll give you limit, that is wrong. So if they are saying that, you please bring the attention of which bank, which manager, which proposal, and I will take that up. That is not what the government has intended. Government has said, and I repeat for your clarity, government has said that the 25% limit in working capital, whichever way, funded, not funded, whatever it is, will be automatic as you get out of the lockdown. Number one. Number two, the 3 lakh crore loan guarantee scheme is collateral free for any MSME to avail of. Okay. If the bank manager has not understood it, my suggestion to you is take a paper cutting, give it to him, explain to him, and even if after that he doesn't understand, I have told you today, Prasanna, that 3-4 of you can send me examples of the problem you're facing. I will personally take it up with the finance minister and address the bank issue. But so therefore, no. So Mr. Raju, the government has given proposals and schemes to help the MSME today. It is not futuristic. It is today, now.
One more thing. Now they have 9.25% what they have fixed. Correct. Now even we are getting below 9.25% already. Why they have fixed 9.25%?
So today, I don't know if you heard the RBI governor today. The RBI governor has reduced the interest rates today. He has talked
Repo
about
rate,
that.
repo.
Repo. So his idea is to force the banks to make sure that the loan rate, the rate transmission goes to loan rates as well.
No, but it has been announced for 9.25%, where we are getting already 8.5, 8.75, 8.25. We are getting already.
No. So this
It's
is
more.
No. This is why I am saying there is no such thing as a perfect solution.
Yeah.
You want liquidity, you want increase of working capital without stock, and you want lower interest rate. Now, I will try my best, but that is the perfect world, and we're not operating in a perfect world.
No, sir. Rajivji, already repo rate 4% they fixed. They fixed for repo rate 4%. Why they need 9.25%? They can give it 6% also, no?
I will fix up a Zoom call for you with the RBI governor one of these days. You will negotiate.
Please.
You will negotiate that.
Okay.
I don't think
The main issue currently is liquidity. The liquidity is the main thing. The government has made it possible. If the banks are not responding, please give me the examples and I'll take it up. I'm repeating it for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prasanna.
Yeah, that was one question. Of course, I think like Rushabh, who says that, the MSME definition, like ideally 100 crore is restrictive, but I think there is some idea to even increase it to 200 crores or something. Nitin Gadkari has said, so we can wait for it. So that might be
like I said, I think we should focus on what has been announced.
Yep.
We should be confident in our mind that, of course, the government is like a continuing process. These reforms are a continuing process, and things will continue to evolve. But what we have today is what we have, which is big, which is meaningful. And like I said, if things are not working on the ground, our focus should be to make it work on the ground.
Yep, right. So the next question, I'll invite Sachi Yalandur. You're around, Shachi? Shachi, okay, fine. So maybe
I'm around. Yeah.
If you could just quickly.
Yeah. Right. Hi. I'm from O2 Solace, which is a IT services company, and one of the major challenges, again, we are a startup and MSME as well. One of the major concern is we don't get loan. We don't get loan because we don't have any tangible products as such. In the sense, the hard manufacturing kind of products we don't have. And what we have is all these IT solutions and services, which nobody can touch or feel, though we can give mobile apps. But now most of the banks and wherever we go, we get this response. No, you can ask for furniture or office setup, but not on the products that we are going to develop. And our major cost comes from the salaries that we pay for people, and not on any other equipment and other things. So most often we get a suggestion that go to investors, but investors might not be the business model in which we want to get into. Now with all these things, how would this stimulus package help people like us?
So do you have contracts with clients?
Yes, we had contract with clients externally earlier. Now with the COVID situation, all of them have been put on hold. So we used to work.
So currently, what is your business model? Are you working on projects for clients, or you're not working on any project for any client?
Right now, there are only a few small support kind of activities which we are doing and which are coming to a closure. But what we have been working is on the products that we are internally developing, which can help in this supply chain management and platform for, sales for small and medium scale businesses. So we are working with many people on that within India. But outside India, most of them have said, sorry, COVID, and they say, we put it on hold, we'll come back to you when we can come back.
So Shachi, because I understand a little bit of this, let me give you some advice. Debt is usually a product that is available to a business that has an ongoing business and therefore ongoing clients. So either you have inventory that you can show, or you have a contract that you can demonstrate. But for a business of such as yours, from what I understand from what you're saying, you are a business that requires more startup capital, you require risk capital, subordinate debt, equity, that kind of product, not debt. So for that, the government has announced the MSME, in the MSME package, a 50,000 crore fund of funds for equity and a 20,000 crore subordinated fund of subordinate debt. Both these are through SIDBI.
Okay.
You may want to approach SIDBI, present your company, and ask for either the subordinate debt or the equity.
Okay, fine. We'll do that.
Yes.
Next question from Jai Kumar. You're on. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. It's been a pleasure. Second time I'm on with you. And it was a wonderful, outstanding package. I have actually no questions about MSME related because it was pretty clear about what the government is doing and how it has to go about the whole thing. Yeah, there is a lot of ifs and buts, which is very obvious with the economy like ours, which is so large. And MSME as a cluster is so big that we will have a lot of questions, but I don't have any questions there. Since you had also asked for suggestions as to how do we take our economy forward, I
think we've lost her. Sorry.
Okay.
I think we have lost her. Sorry.
Rahul, I have a question.
Something
Rahul, go ahead.
In mind about.
Sir, I just want to talk.
Rahul?
This is Shiv Shankar.
Yes, Rahul here.
Go ahead, Rahul.
Mr. Rajiv, thank you very much for taking this initiative. You will know by the trend of the questions that as much as you have the good intention of trying to solve this issue of banks giving loans to MSMEs, most of us as a trend tend to get this answer in the negative from banks. And they kind of don't give you a straight negative answer. They say no this and no that and everything else, especially if you're in the services space. One suggestion that I have is most of us have paid GST over the past 1 year. So it kind of tends to give you, especially if you're in the services industry, it kind of tends to give you a trend as to what your revenues are and what your payouts to the government was. If banks can be kind of instructed that is basis the past GST, and if you are current on GST, if you're, it's not like you've defaulted on any of them, a certain percentage of that at least give as loan, because like you said, in the services industry, you have no plant and machinery to give as your quote unquote, requirements. It's mainly salaries, etc. Even if you look at, let's say 30% or 40% of GST, that will cover the 60-day period of salaries.
Correct.
So that is one big suggestion. And the second suggestion, since you've been so generous to tell us that we can write to you, I think if some of us could just write to Prasanna or somebody and consolidate some of those requirements, so you will get a trend as to how many of us are trying to apply and getting negative answers, and in that way kind of try and fix issues with banks in general, so that we as MSMEs can kind of avail these schemes.
Yeah, Rajiv, take this opportunity to consolidate all the feedbacks, but I think even largely, since we've also been publishing a whole lot of articles and suggestions from a lot of MSME entrepreneurs. Of course, banks do a good job of transmitting credit in the Indian system, but I think the excessive reliance on banks alone to transmit, like for example, the suggestion that the gentleman just gave, Rahul, in terms of a GST-based, leveraging on your GST track record and doing some immediate lending and all that stuff. So those kind of suggestions are actually been emerged from a lot of quarters. So I think hopefully, if we can put together and share it with you, and if you could, play the voice of MSMEs for us with the powers that be, that would be, I think, a phenomenal thing.
So look, Prasanna, I want to be the voice of anybody and everybody who's in the economy and who needs, who's in distress and is unable to avail the government's package.
Yeah, package. Right.
And in my opinion, what Rahul is saying, it is not really relevant, Rahul. I'm just explaining to you politely because there is no conditionality that has been attached to the government's announcement of making available credit to the MSMEs. So now if I go and say, do it based on your GST track record, then MSMEs who don't have a good GST track record for the last 6 months will say, excuse me, why are you changing the rules of the game? In my opinion, there is no need for that. And I'll explain to you that the problem today is at the transmission of credit at the manager of the bank or the general manager of the bank or the risk manager of that particular bank. And why I am urging you to send me 3-4 examples is not because I have, like I said, I'm jobless and I have nothing to do. It is because I can take real examples and prove that while the government's intentions are honorable, that at the grassroots level, this transmission of credit, there is a bottleneck. And the bottleneck may be either individual, it could be some corruption, it could be risk aversion, it could be just plain innocently a manager not wanting to get into this business at all. But my view is that if you are a bank manager and a credit manager and you don't lend, then that is the wrong job for you. Then you should be joining an NGO and doing something else. So we should get a new bank manager who is able to discharge credit, because that is what the job of a bank is. And the reason why the government has gone and created, and the RBI has created 7.5 lakh crores of liquidity in the banking system is not for it to be there in the showcase and we keep walking past it and waving at it. It is for it to be available to you and to everybody. So I say, Prasanna, again, at the risk of contradicting you, I would rather go down this road where you give me 4 or 5 examples.
Correct.
Of a proposal to a bank and where the bank has not responded, like Jacob said, like the Kritika said. You give me 4 examples like that, and then we'll resolve it like that. And if there's a systemic issue that banks just don't want to lend, then that is for the government to address.
Address it, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Uma Reddy.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Uma.
So first and foremost, I must say thank you for making time to spend with us on this interaction, because we feel good that there's somebody who's actually listening to us one-on-one. So that makes a lot of difference. So we value that. I really have an example. So it's one of our members who was also into the electronics business. And he has it's an MSME with about 5 CR turnover, but he has managed to get a DRDO order for about 4.5 CR. Mm-hmm. And he needs to execute it in the next 3 months. But he has been going from pillar to post to the banks asking for funding, but they are not willing to give, and he just needs 50 lakhs for it. And he's not able to get that under any scheme which is presently running. So when we are talking about COVID and we're talking about the pandemic and the fact that this disruption is actually throwing out many new ways of working, and we keep saying many innovative ways, and here is an MSME who has an order, who wants to execute it, but is not able to raise any funds because of not having a collateral.
Uma, so just to understand.
Can I share that?
Yeah, of course you can share it. Just to understand, he is an ongoing MSME. He's an operating MSME.
Yes.
And
he's an operating MSME, has a 5 CR turnover, has a small working capital limit as of now.
But he has a small working capital limit. He can increase that working capital limit.
They're not willing. He's got about 7 lakhs working capital limit with HDFC Bank. They're not willing to give him.
No. He should not go to HDFC Bank. He should go to a nationalized bank.
Yeah. So he's gone to the nationalized banks, because the present one is with the private bank. Nationalized banks, but he's not
you send me the papers on this and the nationalized bank that he has approached.
Yes.
If you can send me the application, and then I will put it.
Yes.
Of course. This is a good example.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyone else? Meenakshi, probably you've been asking.
Shiv Shankar has been asking for some time. Shiv Shankar.
Hello.
Meenakshi, after that, Shiv Shankar. After Meenakshi, Shiv Shankar, you can come there. I can't hear you. You are muted, Meenakshi.
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for letting me speak. A lot of it has been said about fees being, delayed for. toddlers at least. And then these online classes. I urge you, if you can take this also forward, they're pushing us nook and corner saying July we'll start online classes. A 4-year-old cannot go into an online class and do that. And we're paying a huge amount for those online classes. If everything comes on us, then why are we paying the fees? That's one point. They've already taken the fees.
Okay, the school. You mean the school?
The school, yeah.
Okay.
The second point, sir, is most of us have been using credit cards for the last 2 months, and maybe we'll continue using credit cards for the next few months as well. Now, how is this? Is it going to be like a new monster that's coming over us?
I don't understand. If you use a credit card, how does it become a monster? I mean,
because these children don't know what to do. They're sitting at home. They can't go out to play.
Okay.
What do they end up doing? Half the time they're trying to play mobile games.
Okay. We'll just go to the next question.
No, I think Shiv Shankar.
Could I speak?
Shiv Shankar is there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, Shiv Shankar.
Sir, namaskar. Sir, I have a typical problem. You know, we have been running in industry for for the last 10-15 years. And, you know, our account has become an NPA. And once it was OTR has been done. And of course, you know, the unit is running very well. And we have excellent orders from the public sectors. And now we are approaching the bank for funding. And they are refusing to give the funding. How do we go about it?
On what basis are they refusing? You are an MSME or you are.
They say they have already done once. They have already done once OTR, and you know, we had requested for either one-time settlement or give us some additional funding, because we have orders from none other than ONGC. Like, you know, MRPL, we have more than about 4.5 crore rupees order in hand. And unfortunately, we have not been able to execute during the last 3-4 months period because of the problem. And we have been requesting them to please give some advance on the, for the job.
You are an MSME?
The bank says no.
Are you an MSME?
Yeah, I am an MSME, yes.
No, I mean, that is not correct, because if you have completed your OTR and you are a standard account, you are entitled today to get 25% more additional working capital and avail of a loan under the 3 lakh loan guarantee scheme.
No, but it is already an NPA.
No, you are, but no, it is now standard, isn't it? OTR is complete.
Yeah.
But then you are standard, you are not NPA.
It is NPA. It is already an NPA.
No, on what date was it an NPA?
For the last 6 months, it is an NPA.
After the OTR, it has become an NPA again.
Yes.
I see. Then what you need to do is, then you need to go to SIDBI. You have to apply for that equity and or subordinate debt. And you should do it quickly. Okay. There is a subordinate debt fund, subordinate debt program, and an equity program.
Totally three.
So the government will allow you to draw down equity, draw down subordinate debt, pay off your NPA, and then become standard and avail this debt under the loan guarantee scheme.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Please look into that. Please.
Yeah, E.T. Rawat, I think she's been on the chat. You can go ahead and ask the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Namaste, Rajiv ji. We have met before also in the previous webinar, and thank you so much for taking out time again and speaking to us. I have got very, very basic questions, sir, this time, and this is coming from after your webinar that we attended, and we went back and we spoke to all the women entrepreneurs, talked about how you can avail loans from the government. The basic question that came back to us, that one is that most of the traditional businesses right now, they are not looking at increasing their debt, because it is making it more riskier right now. And the economic packages that are currently working out for us is more related to loans and taking out loans and working on loans. The current problem that the MSME is actually facing, one, the biggest challenge is the taxes. Second, the biggest challenge is the salaries. because of salaries they are not able to pay. There are a lot of job losses and tax cuts that are happening. Even if we compare it with the American economic package, there is an economic package of job loss that America is giving. Is there somewhere we can work out for these salary cuts, for paying out the salary to our employees, some package or tax reduction which can increase our liquidity, the current business?
Okay, I got the question. Rajiv, she is asking what is
I got the question, Prasanna.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think currently what the government has done is the focus is liquidity. And the government has approached this in two ways. One is you can borrow more money to get liquidity. The other is the government has reduced your costs and outflows. For example, the Provident Fund, the program, that whole contribution, 12.5% that a company otherwise has to contribute, the government is contributing. So there is some money left over in the hands of the company by not paying PF, by not paying the interest, by not servicing the debt. Currently, the idea is that you have some liquidity in your business. Now, if you don't have that liquidity or you want to increase that liquidity, that the government has provided these lines of credit, which is working capital, and these untied loans, guaranteed loans. Now, on top of that, the government has said there is subordinate debt of 20,000 crores and 50,000 crore program of equity. You have to tap all of these and see which ones you want. But to say that I don't want to take the debt, I don't want to take the equity, I don't want to take the subordinate debt, but still I want to have liquidity through some miracle, that will not work, I think. I'm sorry to say. You will have to look at the short-term problem as a problem. Many people have told me this. Why should we take more debt? You are creating more debt on our thing. But frankly, there is no other way. Today, a business that is facing this kind of a problem, the government cannot start giving grants like in the US, because the government here will start giving grants. It is a ready-made, it will be ready-made criticized for corruption. Why did they give it to Ms. Rawat's business? Why did they not give it to Ms. Jayakumar's business? Can you give grants to all businesses? Impossible in India to give grants to all businesses. So therefore, my suggestion, and I urge you to look at what your liquidity position today is on the basis of all these deferred expenses. And then on top of it, overlay the working capital additional borrowing. And if that is okay, then that's fine. If you want some more money, then you borrow some more from the loan guarantee scheme. If you want equity and subordinate debt, then you tap into that. So the government has given you quite a bit of flexibility. But the government is not, unfortunately, in a position to give you a miracle of saying you will not do any of this, but you'll still be liquid, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. So we have.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Right. Actually, the payroll protection program in the US, I think it had almost like 600 billion funding, and it ran out within 2 weeks. So I think it's just impossible.
Exactly. And Prasanna, it is very difficult in India to do because the moral hazard of it. Yeah. There are companies today that can misuse that.
You have to win us, basically. That's the. Yeah. So Nitin Sheshadri, I think.
Yes. Familiar name.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nitin.
Yeah. Hi, Rajiv. I just have a couple of quick points. Number one is the fact that one of the big challenges we face, and I run an industry too, is a transmission of interest rate drops that the RBI keeps giving downward. Okay, banks use any number of excuses to avoid passing those on. Right. For instance, today also there was a 40 basis point reduction. I bet we're not going to see even one naya paisa out of that 40 basis points. Now, there is a law in the GST Act that says that I'm prohibited if my finished goods have a lower GST rate. If the government lowers the rate, I have to pass it on, the benefit on. Why can government not legislate something through an ordinance that forces banks to transmit the thing? This is point number one. A quick second point is there are a lot of credits which stand to business accounts with various government departments. To give one specific example, there is 115 JB and JA tax credits, which is basically the minimum alternate tax. It was abolished by the finance minister this year, but for instance, our company has paid MAT for the last 3 or 4 years, right? It's supposed to be set off against future profits in the next 8 years. Now, this is the opportune time for the government to take a one-time step to say that MAT is anyway abolished. At least what amount you have paid as MAT, let it be given back to the SSE so that they can use that to run their business instead of waiting for some future profits in some future period of time, right? I mean, these are some small steps which I feel would make a difference. That's all I wanted to say.
So on the second one, Nitin, I don't think an MAT refund is possible, but you can suggest an accelerated credit kind of a scheme. So why don't you send me a quick email on, using your company as an example or whatever, on the MAT thing. On the second thing about this transmission, you see, we have an interesting situation. We want our banks to be independent and not controlled by the bank, by the government in good times. But in bad times, we want the banks to do exactly what the government tells them. It is a bit of a, it's a little bit of a balance that we have to work on with the banks, because this government and Prime Minister Modi, especially when he came in 2014, was committed to creating autonomy of banks, board-run banks, boards that had the power to decide what the banks want to do and not do, despite the fact that the government and the public of India are the shareholders of the bank. So that is progressively grown. But at times of crisis like this, we obviously want the banks to not do nothing. We want the banks to do more. So it's an interesting balance that we have to play. But on the specific issue of interest rate and credit spreads between repo and the real rates, the spreads have reduced over the since November of 2019. I track the spreads. So I know that from November 19 to now, the spreads have continuously come down, and that is to a large extent due to the RBI governor's constant prodding, and then recently they had some reverse repos at lower rates and so on and so forth to absorb the liquidity of the RBI, of the public sector banks. So I think that is a work in progress. We should allow the system to allow it to make that happen rather than use a sledgehammer on it, as you suggest, because that creates distortions of other kinds.
Fair enough, Rajiv.
Yeah.
I will send you this note about
the
MAT.
idea. Accelerating the MAT credit use is a good idea. I think I should try and pursue that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rajiv, I think we've overshot the time. It's already.
I'll take one more.
I just have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rajiv ji, I have one question.
Okay, we'll take two. Nidhi, why don't you start with yours, and then we'll come to Sonia, you.
Yeah, so very good evening, and thank you for taking out time and addressing all our questions, Mr. Rajiv. Thank you so much. I'm from Young Indians, and I have a question that our handmade and handloom industry, which is so important contributor to our economy, what has the government done, and how are the packages going to help people like us who are into handloom and handmade industries? What can we do, and how is this going to help us?
Yeah, I don't think so far in the packages there's anything specific to handloom and handmade. But I'm assuming you are either a micro enterprise or a small enterprise.
Yes, I'm a micro enterprise.
So micro enterprises are allowed, again, the credit lines, you're allowed subordinate debt, you're allowed to access the equity, you're allowed to access these loan guaranteed funds. So just like any other entity in the MSME sector, you are allowed to access that. If there is any other idea you have specially for the handloom and handicraft handmade sector, please send me a note. I'm happy to pursue it with the government.
Yeah. But I have a question, Mr. Rajiv. Why does the government never pay heed to this particular industry? We talk so much of handmade in India, and India has a very big contribution of art and handlooms. Why the government just ignores this sector?
First of all, I would not conclude that the government ignores it. Because I'll tell you why it doesn't ignore it, because it is a great employer and it creates a lot of jobs, both direct and indirect. So I'm not going to agree with your contention that it is ignoring it. But the government with this MSME categorization has basically brought every kind of business, whether it's manufacturing, service, under a broad classification of the size of the business, without creating subdivisions in it about handmade, not handmade, machine made, all of that. So if you're a micro industry, regardless of what business you're in, whether your services micro, your manufacturing micro, your handicraft, handmade micro, you get the same kind of support from the government without any discrimination. If you, however, believe there is a justification for some additional support, do send me a note and I'm quite happy to take it up with the government.
Oh, thank you so much.
Please don't believe that you are ignored or somebody doesn't want to help you. I don't think so. This is not a government that, this government goes into granular, every segment of the economy being affected by this package. So
okay.
Be confident.
I'll write to you. Thank you.
Of course. Yes, go ahead.
The package was largely sector agnostic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's absolutely right. What Prasanna is saying is right. The package is sector agnostic. It is basically size. It's focused on size. And the smaller, the more support that the government is giving, regardless of what sector you're in. And those last question, who was the last one?
Thank you.
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Rajiv ji. Thank you so much for hosting yet another session with people from the industry. Truly appreciate it. Rajiv ji, there was a very specific statement made by Honorable PM Sir suggesting that we would like to attract more and more investments into India, attract more and more manufacturing companies into India. I am a developer of an industrial park. It's a private industrial park. We would like to see how maybe not this one, of course, it is not need of the hour. It is not something which will stop the economy at the point. But going forward, to be Atma Nirbhar, we would want more and more companies to come here and make more in India, which always has been his prerogative. So how can, sir, if you can take forward our request, how can the government support more and more private industrial parks? Because number one, these can be executed much faster compared to the larger ones, which are generally demonstrated by the state governments. These are much faster. It's easier for us to connect with more and more investors, potential investors from outside the country. And also the groundwork can be done much faster. Of course, not that the state governments are not efficient enough, but of course the private companies can do it much faster, more efficiently. So how can you take my suggestion or my request forward of seeing some kind of a package or probably some sort of subsidy for private industrial park developers like us? That's something that I put forward to you. Thank you, sir.
No, Sonia, I think you will have to give me some suggestions on what kind of subsidies you want.
Right.
However, today's focus of today's discussion was really about what I call the restarting of the economy, soft landing and restarting of the economy. The expansion phase, the Atmanirbhar Bharat part, we will sit down one day and spend 1 hour in discussing what needs to be done. We are all clear that is our end goal.
Right.
But to get to the end goal, we have to restart successfully. We have to get every one of our businesses that employ, that are productive parts of the real economy to get back to being productive, whether it is 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. We have to get each one producing again and being productive again. That is my focus. And I will just end, Prasanna, if you don't mind, I'll just make a quick end statement and then you can wrap up.
Yeah.
We met before the package. I met a lot of you before the package.
Yeah.
We're now meeting after the package. My entire objective of engaging with you is to understand how the package is reaching you, because the Prime Minister's objective is to announce the package. The Finance Minister's objective is to design and so Prime Minister's objective is to ensure that there is a package. The Finance Minister's objective is to design and announce the package. And it is people like me our job to make sure that the package reaches each one who needs it. So this is the focus of this engagement, Prasanna. I would like out of this real experiences like Mrs. Reddy suggested, Jacob suggested, give me 4 or 5 examples of where the package is not reaching, where the package is reaching, what the issues are. And therefore, I want to de-bottleneck whatever is the bottleneck. I want to at least try hard to de-bottleneck it so that these packages are really actually working. And that is why I think CII and, Kaushik is here. I would urge the industry associations also to run small groups like this with your members and really tabulate where this is not working and why it is not working. Because I can assure you that it is the intention of the government that this does work. So if you have even industry groups that can collect these information, you can send it directly if you want to send it directly to the government, or you can send it through me, and I will follow it up and make sure that each one of those are understood. Why a bank is not lending when a business wants to borrow, and those kinds of things. So that is the objective, Prasanna, and that is why I want to meet up with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rajiv. And there are a lot of questions, but of course, we've run out of time. I'll coordinate with your team and kind of, consolidate some of the questions and probably,
and Prasanna, as a publication also, my request to you is also this cup and a lip metaphor that we use, the slip between a cup and a lip. I think this is a very good, well-designed, calibrated sequence policy action from the government. But we must not allow that gap between a cup and a slip to make it a slip between a cup and a lip to make it ineffective or dilute its impact. So even media, I think if you can write about this and write about examples, like for example, we heard Jacob say something and Kritika say something about how entrepreneurs are fired up, they are committed to rebuilding our economy, but the banks are not doing their bit. And the more we put it out there, the more we will get the banks to change their behavior.
Sure. Happy to serve as a sounding board, Rajiv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend then.
Thank you. You too.
Thank
all
you.
the best.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Raj.